and Reapers Underground. We hope you survive.
Ha ha! Nice try.
All right.
Yep. For whatever reason, I'm so sorry, my demons. Unfortunately, there's a lot of storms here in Nebraska, and it's been fucking with the Wi-Fi. But you can't keep a good devil down. I am back, and I am so unholy blessed to have with me tonight a prolific horror columnist for the Great Dread Central. And we are so excited to talk about all the great stuff that he is doing, and welcoming Giallo Julian to the show tonight. Totally appreciate him taking the time. And we're going to be deep diving into how he got into this horror business and all things Dread Central. But before we get there, we're going to take a quick commercial break to our new brothers over at horrorstruckhotsauce.com. Check it out. All right, that's right. If you are a fan of horror and a fan of, oh yeah, hot sauce on just about all the shit you could possibly put it on, you want to get over to horrorsauce.com and order your fresh batch of horror. All right. Welcome, everybody out there in the comment section. I love you demons so fucking much. And for showing up for Giallo, who I am just so tickled pink to have on the show. How are you doing, my brother?
Oh, I'm doing pretty all right. I appreciate you having me on the show. I mean, as I said, this is my first podcast, so it's pretty special.
Absolutely. And of course, Reaper's Underground is not without its technical difficulties sometimes, because here in the Midwest, where it sucks, sometimes the Wi-Fi fucks with us. So thank you, cell phone.
I know, right? Thank you, technology, all forms of it.
Oh, yes. I know when it kicks me out that the first thing I need to do is switch right over, because I don't miss a beat. So how are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing pretty all right, not too shabby. As I said, I'm glad to be here, and I can't wait to talk about whatever we're going to talk about. And yeah, no, I'm excited.
Humble as fuck here in the underground as usual. So how did this all start for you? At what point did horror strike you in such a way that you wanted to write for the great Dread Central?
Well, horror has always been a part of my life. Like, I've been watching horror movies since I was a child. Like, the first movie I've ever watched was Adam Simon's Carnosaur, which is still my favorite movie of all time at this point, for better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think it's a really good movie. I think it's great. But yeah, no, ever since then, I've been all about monsters and slashers and everything else, and everything that since then just has grown. So I've found other subgenres of horror that I got into: Giallo, foreign horror, like K horror and J horror and all that. So it's always been a part of me, like, through most of my life. And yeah, no, I first got my start writing for horror stuff with The Bloodshed, which was an independent horror news site back in like 2011, 2012. No, it was later, like 2013, 2014, I think, is when I wrote for them. And I don't know if they're still around or not. But yeah, no, I worked for them, and I was doing just like kind of like the odd article every now and then. And that's where I met Josh McMullen, who was the editor in chief for Dread Central for a while. He left in Bloodshed to go to Dread Central, and he was like, "Hey, I like the way you write. Come with me to Dread Central." And I was like, "All right, yeah, hell yeah!" But I was young and dumb, and I waited like 5 years. So give me that offer. I'm like, "All right, I'm going to do that at some point." And I never did. And then at Texas Frightmare one year, I ran into Joshua, and he's like, "Yo, what's going on?" I'm like, "Hey," it was the first time we met in person because he lives over in California, and he was like, "Hey, you should still come right for Dead Central." And I'm like, "Hell yeah, I should. Let's do it." Another year goes by without that happening, and it wasn't until the pandemic started that I had nothing to do, because I was off the job for a bit, and I was like, "You know what? Like, if there's any time to dive into that, it's now." So I reached out to Joshua, being like, "Hey, you still that offer still standing?" And he's like, "Oh, hell yeah!" And then I started off writing on Dread Central, just like the usual opinion thought pieces, like why the Tremor series is the best. I did like stuff like what movies you should pair with other movies. Like, if you're gonna watch From Dusk Till Dawn, what should you watch with it? Just stuff like that. The shit I talk about. Like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, you talk to me for more than 5 minutes, I'm gonna go off on a horror tangent about something. And yeah, no, that
Well,
was
I mean, it's evident that the genre of horror film has touched you in such a way that you have such a undying passion for the genre, and it's really gotten you onto this path, and it's led you to Dread Central. And for those of you out there in the Morbright universe, Dread Central is an online, basically, I guess, for lack of a better term, you can tell me if I'm wrong, Giallo, that it's an online magazine that is constantly delivering great horror news to you about what's up and coming. But the thing that makes you so different, brother, and one of the things that I absolutely love, is the fact that you have a passion for indie film in this genre, that you are covering, some so many great up and coming films, particularly Killer Cox. That I was on set with you. That's where I met you, and the fact that you're trying to bring some of these great indie films to life for everybody to know about. So yeah, tell us a little bit about your column, man.
Oh yeah, no. So after a year of just writing the usual thought pieces and opinion pieces and just nonstop yapping about horror for a bit, it wasn't feeling too fulfilling. Like 'cause I was pretty much just doing what I always do, just on a bigger, like of a bigger, broader audience, if you will. And I was like, well, I wanted to do something with my position at Dresden Central. I want to do something that I felt like would help people. And so I got the idea and I passed it through Mary Beth McAndrews, who's the editor in chief of Dresden Central. Amazing person, by the way. She is, yeah, she is amazing. She is the greatest. And I can't say enough good things about her. But
Yes.
I ran past her like, hey, I'm going to ask some independent artists if they want to have a piece written about them. So I go on like multiple different independent groups on Facebook and Twitter and shit like that, and I'm like, hey, if you have an independent movie or project or something, shoot me a message, I'll see what I can do. And I was expecting maybe 10-15 people, not too many, but then I could wake up one day and look at my messages and it's like over 100 requests from people. And I'm like, oh shit, this is something right here. This is something that, and I was sitting there, I'm like, well, perfect. I want to help all these people. And it's kind of an insurmountable task because there's so many people, but I'm going to help as many of them as I fucking can. So,
Right.
And so I started the original column, which was Giallo Julian's indie showcase or indie spot. Oh, Giallo Julian's indie spotlight, and that's when I just started doing articles of like multiple. Because I had so many projects that I was looking at. I was doing multiple films and artists and stuff, and I tried to keep it varied. I didn't always want to do films. Films is what I get most of, but I want to do other things like books and performers and artists and musicians. I wanted to go because there's so much in the indie horror scene that's more than just movies and stuff. It's great in so many people's stuff, even if it's just like a flavor of what they're doing, and it's amazing. I met so many amazing people doing this. I met like you, like I said, we met during Killer Cox, which that article is going to be coming out soon, as well as a couple of others. But oh yeah, Mortimer, we definitely met. That's right. Yeah, I'm like over a town over, I believe. But
that's right.
Yeah, so
I was going to get to some of the guys in the comments there in a minute. I just didn't want to stop you.
Gotcha. I saw him say that, and I'm like, well, I don't want to be rude and like ignore him. But so I sit in there and just started with me talking to people online, and that's usually how it is. But occasionally I was able to go out and meet people or talk to them, and eventually they started sending me screeners and stuff, so I was able to get proper reviews for their projects, and it just kind of snowballed from there. It started as just a part of what I did for Dread Central to becoming pretty much my main focus on Dread Central, because ever since I started working with the indie scene and promoting the indie scene, it was a lot more fulfilling, and I felt that it was a lot more better time spent than the rest of the stuff, because occasionally I might do a piece that's just like, oh, here's why I love Piranha 2: The Spawning by James Cameron. But like
exactly.
Yeah, no, and ever since then I love it. Like, I've been a little bit behind lately. Well, not a little bit. I've been a lot behind lately because life is life. But I'm trying to pick up right now and get back on track. So just so many things to do and only so much energy to have.
Exactly. I mean, it's draining. It really is. But it's like you said, when you opened that door, you gave a voice to the underground indie horror, and you were like, 100 deep in messages, and that's because directors, producers, writers, they are always trying to find that voice. How can they get that project out to the masses? And you took up that banner. You know what I mean? And it was a very bold move, because when you think of like iHorror.com or, well, shit, Fangoria too, they're not always talking about the realm of indie horror. It wasn't until Terrifier and the success of Terrifier that really kind of lit the world of indie horror on fire, and brought a lot of attention to it. So the fact that you chose that particular part of the genre, to write about and bring awareness to, you have no idea how much that helps. Getting the word out, and everybody that's like trying to get those Indiegogo campaigns going and trying to get people behind it. So, I mean, we absolutely applaud you for that. The great Chandra Rawlings in the house. She says, "Oh my goodness, that's so awesome." Mortimer Deadfellow says, not only are you a town over, but he says, "I would still love to get you cast in the Legend of Bloody Bones," which is a prolific indie horror up and coming film that is going to just set the world on fire.
Hell
Erica
yeah.
Moore says that. Weird. So,
I appreciate all the nice messages. It really, stuff like that really makes it worth it. And Mortimer, for sure, get in contact with me. I'd love to be a part of your movie. I remember us talking about it, and it sounded amazing, and I want to be a part of it. But thank you so much for the kind messages. It means that, it really is. It really is just giving a voice to the smaller people, because as you said, not a lot of the bigger places actually
what's up, Gary?
Actually give a look at the independent. And then they do independent stuff, but even the independent stuff that does get press is still higher budgeted than the low budgeted.
I think the baseline is like 50 grand or 100 grand. That's what usually gets looked at.
Oh yeah, that has to have like a substantial budget to it, which 50 grand's not big in the scheme of like Hollywood, but it's big in the scheme of independent horror. You can do a lot with that.
Hollywood.
And if I could even get a couple of eyes on someone's project, I would. That's worth it to me. I'm just trying to spread the word as much as I can, and that's why I love Dread Central so much. And Mary Beth McAndrews, she did not hesitate. She's like, "Yeah, go do that," and she continues to support me to do all this. And she is, as I said, amazing, and she lets me do all this. And she was on board right at the beginning, which I am not sure if I would have got the same response if I was working with another horror site. I might have. I have no idea, but I think the response I got with Dread Central is really unique in that.
Definitely, like, not afraid to break down those barriers and talk about some of the more inexpensive films, because it's like there's so many great scripts out there that are just great storytelling, and they don't get the budgets like some of the other ones do. And they need a voice as well, because I mean they're kicking ass with it. I can tell you, all of the projects I've worked on this year are definitely worthy of that. Like Grind, obviously Killer Cox, Return of the Corn Zombies.
I'm familiar with that one.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And I mean, they're just the people need to know about it. And with someone like you at the helm at this great online zine, that you've decided to put a spotlight on that, and that's what makes you stand out. That's what makes you, such a vital part of the success.
You speak so highly of me. I appreciate that.
Dude, come on now. You got to applaud yourself a little bit.
I do take a
No
little bit
one
of
just
pride in
says,
what I do.
I'm going to take up the banner for that. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like, I'm only, it's not like I'm doing this for the paycheck or anything. I'm doing this because I really want to
Oh,
help
it's for the
people.
passion. It's for the love.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like I get paid for a couple of them, but sometimes I'm just like, hey, listen, don't even worry about it. I'm doing this because I want to get this project out there. I want to get that out there. And the more I get out there, the more I help you guys. And that's all that matters to me, really. It's very much just a passion for, I've come to appreciate indie horror a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, like very much so doing this. Like I've always had like a good amount of respect and love for it, but it wasn't until I started working on this to where I was like, oh man, there's so much creativity, there's so much cool stuff. There's so many things I don't see because they're not covered anywhere.
Right.
It's like, oh man, I would have never known this was there if I didn't reach out, because these people, it's hard as fuck to get, press anywhere. Like, you have to do it yourself. You have to do it on Facebook or YouTube or make your own advertisements and stuff like that. And that's a lot of hassle. It's work, it's money. And if I can just alleviate that stress a little bit, I'm all for it.
And you do. And it means so much, especially to there's a lot of first time directors that are putting awesome projects out, like the great Chris Stern, who just knocked his Indiegogo campaign for Vic Effects out of the park. OnlyFans,
OnlyFans.
Yes, countless number of projects. That they need somewhere to be promoted, to promote for their film. You really do help with that. So what are some of your recent favorites from indie horror?
Oh man, I'm glad you asked. I got a list right here in front of me. So here's the part where I start promoting other people's projects, as is my way of doing things. Yep. So I have to say my favorite film, like, that I've seen in the past like 2 years working on Dread Central, my indie stuff, and even I'll go so far, not just for indie horror, but just horror in general, because they took their budget and used it really well, is The Sudbury Devil, which was directed by Andrew Rakich, I want to say his name is. I might mispronounce his last name, but he has a YouTube channel, Anton Shea Films, which does a bunch of like history and historical stuff. And Sudbury Devil is a movie. It takes place in the 1600s, and everyone speaks actual English they spoke back then, to the best approximation. And about witches, the devil, Puritans, all that scary stuff, and very folk horror. And I would say it is like, it's a very much a spiritual successor to Antonio Bird's Ravenous with Guy Pearce and Robert Carlyle. Like, there's a lot of like similarities between the two, and he actually based it off that movie as far as like the atmosphere and feeling goes. And I would say give it a watch. Is on Tubi. The Sudbury Devil, fucking great. And of course, I have to I have to give some light to Holes in the Sky, the Sean Miller story by Ash Hamilton, which is about,
yes, I'm familiar. Yes,
yeah, that found footage alien film about abduction, and they're trying to find out what happened to this guy, and strange things start happening. That one got me into found footage. Like, I was never much into it before that film. Like,
me neither.
Yeah, like, I felt it was oversaturated. I felt like everyone was just trying to beat a Blair Witch Project, and it wasn't really something. Like, even bigger films like Cloverfield didn't really catch my interest. But I watched this movie, and I was like, hold up, this is really good. What else? What else is out there that follows this style? And I found that I've actually grown a pretty big love for found footage films now, thanks to that film, because there are ones that use it effectively. There are ones that use it to a creative degree, like yeah, and the holes in the sky is why I have to thank for that. Then, of course, another one is "I Need You Dead" by Rocco Sevenbergen. I believe I said his name right. Which is a very interesting film. It is very much a tribute to Frank Hillenlotter films, like like Basket Case and Brain
Oh, yeah.
Damage. Yeah, those kind of films. And it's
So
kind of
freak.
a not only a deconstruction of his films, but it's also a deconstruction of the making of his films, like how he made things. Like, because his stuff was like very, very low budget, and this one is trying to kind of do I said subversion, deconstruction of it. And you go in there, you watch the trailer and you expect one thing, and you get an entirely different thing. So go with that one in
Uh-oh.
mind,
We may.
and it's
There we
really
go.
good. And all these
Hell
are on
yeah.
Tubi. And of course, and here's my last movie one I'll go ahead and promote is Bunker Heights, which is being made by a good friend of mine. Yeah, Drew Fortier, who is one of the musicians for The Lucid, which I believe has who is it? Has a band member from Fear Factory, Megadeth, all these people together, like a big super group. Yeah, he plays with them, and it is really good. It stars him and Hannah. Was it Fearon? Yeah, the of VHS fame, the one with the Bachelor's Night or whatever it is, with the demon that kills all the guys at the beginning. And this one is very much what Carnosaur is to me, Chud is to Drew. Because it's very
Chud
much.
Yeah,
I love Chud. I used to not like it too much, but every time I watch it, I get more of an appreciation for it. Now I love it. And it's very much based like that. It has it has like the monsters and the corruption and stuff like that. And that's not out yet.
The cinematography of that film really creates this sense of terror. As only the 80s really could bring to life. Because once we started getting into I don't want to say 4K just yet, but we got into the 90s, things got a little bit clearer, and then obviously by the 2000s it's like you're standing right next to the motherfucker in the film. But the 80s, it felt like you got sucked into a different world, and that's why I always say, like, movies like Chud, Rawhead Rex, Humanoids from the Deep.
Yeah,
those things really offered a very unnerving kind of feeling.
Yeah, and I think the reason for that is because people were able to be making their own films without the need for a studio or something. Like, equipment was getting more easy to handle, like more flexible, and so people could actually go places and film these things. And back then, you couldn't really the sound studio or green screen wasn't really option for a lot of them, so they had to go to like actual locations and actual places and film this. They had to use practical effects back then, and it gives it very much a real vibe. It might not be like the most realistic, but something's there. Like Adam Simon, in my interview with him about Brain Dead, which if you haven't seen Brain Dead, check it out, it's great. 1990, Bill Pullman, Bill Paxton. He said that CGI doesn't work because in our brains we have like this. I love, like he's some sort of mindset, evolutionary thing, to where we are more accustomed and scared of something we know is right in front of us than there is something not there and just kind of like not real. So, you're sitting there and you see a tiger on screen that's CGI, your brain's like, no tiger, that's just CGI. But then you see like a very like pokey tiger puppet killing someone, like, oh my god, that thing's there. There's a chance that I could run into that in an alleyway one day because it actually exists. Like a 0.1% chance of running into that puppet somewhere, where CGI, you're never going to run into it. It's
nope.
fake.
And that's how I felt about movies like Critters.
Mhm.
That felt so real. How many times do we go out into the country,
Oh
and
yeah.
then suddenly, some fucking abomination comes
That's the thing.
popping out.
If I'm just walking down like a desert road, like a deserted road one day, I turn and just see one of those critter puppets just laying down next to a garbage can. I'll tell you, I'll have a heart attack in a little bit right there. Like, huh!
You
But
know,
so yeah, no,
even
I
films
agree.
like Children of the Corn.
Yeah,
As gritty as that was, it still felt real, but it didn't give you that like fakiness that Lizzie was just talking about. She says, "I hate when films are too crisp. It looks like the actors on a set. Takes me right out of it."
oh, I understand that feeling. There's especially a lot of people that think that making their films as the resolution as the best they possibly can be would make their film better, when in actuality, it just makes it seem cheap, cheaper, I guess. I don't know, it's
Very
weird. Like the the lower the resolution is, the more it feels less cheap. It's kind of weird. I don't know. Seeing it, like, I
no,
guess
I
it's
feel that.
because, yeah, I guess it's because the more crisp it is, the more clear the picture is. It reminds me of like a soap opera on TV, where it's like very much that feeling, as Lizzie said. It's like on a stage or somewhere, and it's like very, very what she said, crisp, very clear, very, you see everything that's happening. There's no
Like I said,
static at all. There's no, like, you could tell it's not being made on film. It's like on a digital
yep.
medium, which is fine, but it definitely has a quality to it that I personally don't care for. But you know, it does look clear. It does look like a clear picture. And sometimes you just got to use what you got. So some of the times it's like not their choice. It's like, oh, well, this is the only camera we have, so we should use it. We have to use it for this, and that's it's fine. It's just a hurdle that I have to jump over every time.
Right.
Yeah.
So, are there specific things that you look for uh, in indie film before it grabs you, before it makes you want to, bring this out to the masses?
Well, it's very very shallow. Mostly my enjoyment of the film. There's I do look at technical aspects, but when it comes down to it, is called the entertainment business, and if I'm not entertained, then I don't have much of
Exactly.
a bunch of a
Right.
desire to do anything with it. Like, I'll try, but I even films I don't really care for, I'll try and get something out there for them. Not all the time, but I try, just because just because I didn't like it doesn't mean there's no one else that doesn't like it. Out there, someone might like it out there. But other
Hell
than
yeah.
that, I do look for like creativity and technical skill and things that they do behind the scenes. What adversity they conquered to make this film, and a
Oh,
lot of
that's a
them,
big one.
yeah, no, like, you have a very small budget. How are you gonna use it to your advantage? And there's a lot of people that do really well. Like again, Drew 48. He made a film called Dwellers, way, like, not way back in the day. It's like 2019. Feels like way back in the day. But he did it in 3 days with almost no budget, using a camera and two of his friends. And it's one of the it's the best spiritual successor. It's the best sequel to Chud than the actual Chud sequel. So I'm like,
Oh, nice.
wow,
Yeah.
it was really good. And that's also found footage, and it's really well done. And that was made on almost nothing. And it can be
Ah,
done. But if I had to say, the one thing that really turns me off with a film is being boring. Like, there's
mm,
overstaying your welcome, not following the 15-minute rule, where you have to do something to catch the audience in the first 15 minutes, or else
that's
you
it.
lose them.
Yeah.
And that's something you have to start off with a bang. And a lot of, well, not a lot of them, but a couple of filmmakers I've watched films for, they take a 70 to 90-minute premise and drag it out to like over 2 hours. And I'm like,
Oh,
yeah,
focus on all the wrong shit.
it really, they do. Like, I was watching one film about like a ghost or something, and it was like 2 hours, and 20 minutes long or something like that. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe they'll make it work. Maybe they won't like just drag things out. But no, it's a whole lot of nothing, a whole lot of just characters talking about shit that doesn't matter. Like there's a lot of good parts about it,
Too
but
much
this part is
character
not it.
development. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm like, listen, they're trying to tell a deep or like a more of a story than they can afford at this point, or they need to get someone to edit the script or edit the movie better, because there's just a lot of points where it could just been shaved down to make a pretty solid 90-minute film.
Oh
And
yeah.
when they do that, I find myself zoning out because of how I am. Like if I'm sitting there starting to go onto my phone, then I know that something is not right with this film, or at least something is not catching my interest, and they
Yeah,
should probably
I can
change it.
definitely agree with that. I feel like that if I go to the movie theater, um, if I have to like pick up and check the time,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah,
see what message just came through, I must not be interested
yeah,
in what I'm being shown.
exactly. And like I like to multitask, so I'll watch a movie and do other things at the same time just to keep my
Oh
focus
yeah,
on a couple of things. But if I'm spending more time focused on the things other than the movie, then I know. And another thing is just let me see what's another example I can bring up. Because there's a lot of just people focusing on the wrong things, people thinking they have a better premise than they actually do, people who think they can get away more with their budget than they actually can. Because there's a lot of people that have ambitious like stories, and their
yeah,
ambitious stories do not
mhm,
fit their budgets. And one of the main things I feel any director should do is work to their budget, not work beyond it, or try to make their budget stretch beyond their capabilities. So if you want to
right,
tell a story that wants to encompass like a very very wide range of things, if you want to have like a very big story, you need to have the budget to go with that. So if you don't have the budget to go with that, maybe start off with something smaller and work your way up to it, get some more people interested in your stuff, able to get more of a budget somehow, and go from there. Or you can just go the trauma route and say fuck it and just make whatever the hell you want with like $50, which I also respect. Yeah, like you know what? That's a whole different part of that's like the other side of the spectrum. It's either so cheap and ambitious, it's fun, or they have the budget to fit their script and it's fun, and right in the
yeah.
middle where it's like kind of wishy washy, kind of like maybe. But yeah, no. So all I can say about that is just be mindful of your budget, be mindful of what you can do, and don't be scared to kill your darlings. If there is a scene that you're not able to make, if there's something in your script that you are not able to do well, cut it out and come back to it with later with like when you have it include it in something else, or uh just like what was I saying? Just cut it out,
I
come back
mean,
to it for a future project, wait with a higher budget, or cut other things out of your script to help make that. If it's really permanent, that's it's very important that scene is in there. Take away other scenes to make that scene up there. Take away all the scenes that aren't important to use
yeah,
the funds for that to that
'cause,
scene.
a lot of those films that have a little too much fluff, or they take too long focusing on this one thing just to fill time, the viewer is going to feel that. They're going to recognize that. They're like, okay, 5 minutes just went by and this person's still taking a shower. You know what I
Yep, and
mean?
if it's
Or they're taking the longest piss known to man, and you're just like, okay, well, what's gonna happen next?
I will
Gonna
I
get
will
shit
say
or what?
I will say this: there is a point to where the amount of time like someone's doing stuff like that switches around back to being funny, where it's like 5 minutes
Yeah,
long, you're like, oh,
for the
it's taking
comic
so
relief.
long.
Yeah,
Then 2 minutes, you're like, okay, it's kind of funny that it's taking so long to do this, and you can tell they're spending. So sometimes it helps be part of the
exactly.
joke, but a lot of times it's not that way. And unless you're
Yeah,
Freckle and Ray or Jim Wynorski, I don't know if you can get away with just doing a 15-minute shower scene.
It's like, if that's what you have, to sell the film, then something's wrong with the script writing.
I was sitting there, I'm like, I'm thinking you're making this movie for entirely different reasons than you're telling people. Yeah, so it's, oh man, it is one thing or another. I will say this too. Sometimes a story is better as a short than it is as a full feature, and I see that a lot. Where people, I mean, there's some prestige and stuff that comes with making a full feature. You're able to get like a little bit more representation doing a full feature, but sometimes a story is just not perfect for it. If you're having to like keep adding scenes to it just to stretch out the time, maybe it shouldn't be like a full film. You should make it a short, and then gain interest that way, or put it out there. And plenty of people have gotten more exposure doing shorts than full film.
Sure.
Like, and it's because they tell stories that people like. It's not as much of a commitment. Like a 90-minute film is more of a commitment than a 15 and 30-minute short. Especially the 15-minute short is paced well and it goes, and the story doesn't flows really well for the short. Like it's able to do in 30 minutes. And especially compared to a 2-hour film. So I would say that shorts, or even anthology, I've been seeing a lot of movies doing anthologies of other people's shorts recently. Like it'd be a film where they get their permission to use a bunch of shorts from other creators, and they make like an anthology film out of it, which I think is a good idea because that gets you a lot of people to see that stuff. And then there's like YouTube channels like Alter, who shows a bunch of fantastic indie short films that you can see it. And one, it helps with your budget, and two, it allows you to use the budget to really show off your talents. It really shows you're able to focus on the scenes you do have more without having to spend money on stuff that doesn't matter.
Right. Because in a lot of cases, you can have some of the best in underground talent, but at the end of the day, how the filmmaker puts it together, and you can kind of tell the passion for what they're trying to bring to life. If it's not there, it's just not there. So I agree with that 1,000%.
I agree. Like, you can tell when a movie is just being made as a paycheck, or a way where, just as a way to make money or something like that. You can tell when it doesn't have heart in it, where it's just a product and not a creation. And I've seen that a couple of times too with a couple of indie people, where I'm like, this movie is just kind of the barest of bones, just meant to get out there and have some people spend a couple of dollars on it and watch it. And it's not meant to be good one way or the other. If it is good, then great. If not, it wasn't meant to be. And I'm sure they don't care either way. And they just want to get a little bit of a paycheck from it, which is fine. People have been doing that forever. I mean, as much as I love Roger Corman, a lot of his films were just, to make a couple of bucks. However, I will say that Roger Corman did the right choice of hiring very talented people to make these films.
Oh, that makes all the difference in the world.
Oh, too. Yeah, exactly. Like, if you just want to be a producer and just make something to make a little bit of cash, give the actual project to someone that can make a quality product, and then you'll make more money because people want to watch it more. So there you go.
Well, sure. But the kind of the romance, though, of Roger Corman is he had a flair for how everything looked. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what made him so popular. And, there's a lot of really great indie horror films right now. I mean, shit, when we go back to, let's say, the first Evil Dead, the fact of the location, they used the scenery to their advantage. It totally encompassed everything that story was trying to bring to life. And they did that shit on a beer budget.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was a small ass crew. It was a small crew, just 3, maybe 4 or 5 actors tops. Mm-hmm. And look at what the legacy that they created.
Oh yeah, for sure. And even then, like when it first came out as Book of the Dead, like it didn't do too well either. It took a couple of years for it and a bunch of rebranding to make it as popular as it is, which is why
Oh, fuck.
probably Evil Dead 2 didn't come out to like 87 or wherever it came out. And
Exactly.
back then was the Wild West, where it was like the lull of more Hollywood pictures and the rise of more independent pictures coming out. Like studios were willing to pick up smaller films and throw them in theaters because it was probably cheaper. And two, like they're the more creative talent that way. Like Toby Hooper, I see Mortimer mentioned Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yes,
Sure.
that's one
Fuck
of them.
did.
Did
Yeah,
that.
that was my next point.
Halloween. Yep, Halloween, Black Christmas, all this kind of
Yeah,
stuff. That was on the smaller side. Phantasm, which is notorious
Phantasm.
for yeah, for the small budget it had, and the amount of footage you're able to have to the point where they had enough extra footage to make another movie out of it for Phantasm 4. And I'm like, where the like they just kept filming stuff for like over a couple of years. It's crazy. And another thing about Roger Corman, I'll say that it's important to I feel is important to uh up and coming indie directors and producers and creators is that he had an eye for knowing what audience wanted what. Like he was like, "Hey, I'm making this movie for this audience. I'm making this movie for this audience," and he is like a bunch of niche audiences he'll make money from, and that helps out a lot, I think. Where because a
Marketing
couple,
is a
yeah, because I'll watch a movie and I'll be like, it wouldn't be like my cup of tea. I'd be like, oh man, this is not meant for me, but I know exactly which audience this is for, and they're gonna love it. So,
yeah.
like, if you want to make a movie that's like a creature feature meant for the people that like the practical effect monsters and suits that look hokey, but are there and look cool, like the cool like ripping apart scenes of people's bodies. Hell yeah, I'm part of that group. That's me, so that's perfect for me. And then then there's like the people who like the August Underground and all the really fucked up movies, and there's a niche audience for them, and they do love that stuff and they do pay for it. And there are people that made a name in that subgenre. There's people making names for themselves and singular subgenres, which
Yep.
is really neat. And that is something that you could do. And if you're able to do that, you might have a harder chance to break out of that subgenre, but I think you have more of a chance to do so because people already know who you are and going to give your other work a chance. And that's going to
Right.
broaden your audience out a little bit.
So important.
Oh, yeah. So, budget, audience, creativity. Like, that's the three things, I think. Use your budget well, know your audience, and be as creative as you can with it.
Most deaf. And I'm sure you've noticed this as well as I have, that that's kind of the current trend in some of the low budget films that are coming out indie wise. They already have in their mind what audience they're trying to target. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you see the rise of, the passion of the old school days when you had the USA Up All Night,
Oh, yeah.
productions, that films that they were putting through on USA,
Mm-hmm.
for once the kids are to bed, you're watching
Yeah,
the naughty stuff. There's
exactly.
like yeah, it's like there's this huge rise in that. But another thing I'm seeing though too is the resurgence of the art of slasher films like Midnight Maniac.
I don't think I've heard of that one. Midnight
Yep,
Maniac.
that's one
Okay.
that stars Felissa Rose and Lisa Wilcox. That they're trying to get off the ground as well,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a total throwback to the allure of '80s slashers, and just trying to like. I'm trying to think of the one film that I can put it up against. Black Christmas. It kind of
Okay.
reminds me of a killer of that magnitude. In Texas, there's another one. Um Son of a bitch. Uh,
I'm looking up this
there's so
Midnight Maniac one. And
so
I'm like,
many
oh man, I
films.
see so many names. Jennifer Nangle, Angel Nicole Bradford, who's literally in everything.
Yeah. Yep. Mhm.
I mean, there's one person in my indie films that I have been seeing like almost like I see him like every other film. One, Lloyd Kaufman and Celeste Rose, they show up in everywhere. But other than those
Oh,
two, Angel Nicole Radford shows up in literally so many things. I don't know how she has so much time to be in so many movies, but she is doing great.
well, sure, absolutely. And there's good reason for that.
Oh yeah, she's
Um,
really talented.
Caught in My Eye by William R. Instone out of Texas.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen the Indiegogo campaign for that, but it's another great, paying homage to the great art of slasher films. That's really up and coming, and people are really getting behind it. So I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of those ones popping up as well.
I think so too. Like I haven't heard of that one, so I'm gonna have to research that. But yeah, no,
Definitely.
slashers have been definitely becoming more prominent. One, because they're the easiest ones to make, and two, there's already like a hardcore audience for it. Like as uh much of a lull the slasher has in the mainstream media and
Yeah.
audience, the slasher fans are still very, very ravenous for this kind of stuff. And
For
also
something like
yeah,
fresh blood.
exactly. And Terrifier has definitely restarted that as well.
Yeah.
Terrifier,
Totally
I'll be
ignited
honest,
that.
I was sitting there and I was wondering if we were ever going to have another slasher icon again for the longest time. And I was
Yeah,
sitting there
me
thinking, like, who would
too.
it be? The Collector was almost there, but then that kind of went downhill. I thought
I
Chrome
hear there's a
Skull,
third one coming.
yeah, now it is. Yeah, they got like it went to shit for a bit, but now they're making it again. I'm super excited to see that. I
Me
thought
too.
Blade Chrome Skull from Laid to Rest might have been the next slasher, but he just kind of faded off too. I think there's some controversy or something. Don't quote me on that, but I don't
Hmm.
know. Like I just haven't heard anything about anything else. They were trying to promote it a while. I remember walking through Frightmare and they were trying to promote it, and I guess they didn't get the funds for it. And then I remember Art the Clown. I remember seeing Art the Clown for the very first time back when All Hallows Eve first came out. Checked it
Right.
out, and I was like, "Oh, this character is really cool. I would like to see more of him. I wonder if he's going to get like it was." I didn't think All Hallows Eve was going to get too much traction. It's not something a lot of people know about, and when they do, you're like, "Oh, I didn't know Art was before this stuff." Like in these short films, so it's cool seeing
Mhm.
people rediscover it thanks to Terrifier. And I
Well,
saw
yeah.
Terrifier come out, and I was like, "Oh, he's back." All right, we'll see how this does. And it did really well. Like, it did in the horror scene. And I was like, okay. And then really Terrifier 2 is what did it. Like that was able to
Oh,
like
yeah.
they're
They
able to
pulled all
release
the
it.
stops on that.
Yeah, they were able to release it to a theater, like to mainstream theaters. They
Because
signed
of
a
the
deal with the
fans.
devil or pulled some strings or something. They even loaned he was able
Fans
to.
to finance that whole thing.
Yeah. And I was sitting there, I'm like, oh shit. And not only that, unrated too, I believe. And I'm like, holy shit,
Yeah.
who does that anymore? Like that was like a big thing in the 70s and 80s, but holy shit. And then I go watch it and it blows me the fuck away. And I'm like, holy shit, this
Every
I'm
time.
not sure. I'm not sure if this is gonna be for everybody. And now,
Hmm.
like Terrifier 3 is out, I'm seeing fucking teenagers and kids walking around with like fucking Terrifier shirts on, fucking
Yeah.
adults and shit are talking about it. Everybody's talking about Terrifier. And I'm like, that is so fucking cool to know that I'm not the only fucked up person here.
It's
I'm
almost like he's been turned into an anti-hero. I mean,
yeah.
I was always, that kid, rooting for the bad guy to win. And
Hmm.
every time that you think that the final girl or the heroine of the story has, put a stop to him, it's like, nope, that's some bitch coming back.
Yeah, exactly. And Art the Clown is not like other slashers. Like he is very distinctive from Freddy Krueger and Jason and Michael and stuff. He's got a combination between the classic slasher and Freddy Krueger. Well, he's silent, but he does all the comedic stuff. And I think part of the reason mainstream audiences, this is like my theory, can stomach a lot of the shit he can do that otherwise they probably couldn't. It's because it's so over the top and silly and ridiculous that it just turns around to being fucking hilarious.
Exactly.
Like they're sitting there, it's so out there, so mean, so rude that people can't help but fucking laugh at it. And I'm like, you know what?
What's up,
It's kind
Morgan?
of like Evil Dead, where like no Evil Dead went so balls to the wall with the blood and shit like that, and crazy shit that comes around just being charming.
Yeah, they turned that shit into a work of art. The art of spray.
You know what? Hey, I remember in Dead Rising 2, they changed the color of blood multiple times. They kept getting an NC-17 rating. It was like, well, if we make it green, we'll go down to an R because the blood only counts as blood if it's red, which I guess makes sense.
The old FCC or whatever the hell they're called.
They're the reason why Friday the 13th Part 7 is as good as it could be.
Mm-hmm.
One of these days, we might get a extended cut if we are able to fix up the the film a bit, or you know what? Just put it in. I don't care if like everything else looks crisp as shit, and then the death scenes like a VHS, and make it feel like Manhunt, that old video game. Whenever they show the kills, it turns like a fucking VHS thing, like VHS tape. So I'm like, fuck it, you know.
So, what are a couple of indie films that are up and coming, or that you've seen that you want to let everybody out there in the Morgrot universe to know about?
Well, as I said, the Sudbury Devil for sure. I Need You Dead, Holes in the Sky. If there's any other ones, what was the name of it? It was not The Devil's Children. It was made by Dylan Brown. Dylan Brown did Tahoe Joe, which was a pretty good found footage. Not my favorite he's done, but really good. The Flock is the one that he did that I really liked, which was like, I haven't seen The Devil's Children, but I think The Flock is like a semi sequel to it. And Dylan Brown is a really cool director because he works a lot with veterans. Like he tries to get veterans into his productions to give them a way to like outlet to like, you know, make art and stuff like that. And I believe the person he usually works with is Michael Rock, I want to say his name is. He's really cool. And yeah, no, Dylan Brown is doing a really good job. And check out his films, Tahoe Joe, The Flock, Devil's Children. Give him a shot. Joshua Brucker, who did Mothman and The Woodman. I would say go check his stuff out. His stuff, like, not exactly my thing, but I do like what he does, and I know at some point he's going to make something I'm really going to like because he is really talented. So I say keep out him. Of course, Murder Size and OnlyFans. I'm looking forward to OnlyFans. Murder Size was my top film of 2023 until The Sudbury Devil came out. So because Murder Size was such a fun film. And who was it? Acrostar? Is that the production company? The one that did
sir. That's the
Storm Zombies.
Yep.
They do a lot of fun stuff. Like their stuff is definitely on the lower budgeted side, but their stuff's really fun. Like it came from somewhere, was really funny, and I really liked it. So like that was really fun. What other stuff? And Dwellers by Drew was really good, and keep an eye out for.
Don't forget about Brad Twig and Crackoon.
Yeah, Crackoon. I've been looking forward to checking that one out finally. I believe Angel Nicole Bradford's in that one too, if I remember correctly. Yep, sure enough. A person that I'm proud of that's actually getting a lot of more exposure now, and he deserves it after doing like 300 fucking films, is Dustin Ferguson.
Yes.
And you know what? His films may vary in quality, but he is persistent, he is dedicated, and I can't help but admire that. And he's doing the remake to House on Haunted Hill right now. And the new sequel to The Seed. He's working with Uwe Boll, who I forgot about until I wrote that article. I was like, oh yeah, Uwe Boll. I remember going to theaters to watch his movies back in the day and always walking out like, what the fuck did I just watch? But,
those are the ones that talk the most, you know.
Hey, listen. I have to. Uwe Boll like challenged all like a couple of his critics to boxing matches, and I can't really blame him for that because a bunch of the critics accepted the boxing match. And I'm like, this guy's a boxer. What do you think's gonna fucking happen?
Right? He's gonna bring it
Yeah.
like nobody else.
You're sitting there like you want to go. You're a reviewer that wants to go toe to toe with this guy who is known for beating the shit out of people, and you're surprised to get the shit beat out of you. I don't know. You know, good for them. They're brave. They're braver than I would. I probably just would have been like, you know what? I'm good.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's see. Dustin. There's also someone I have yet to talk to, but I really do want to talk to for about his films. What's his name? Let me see. Yeah, Charlie Steeds. Now, Charlie Steeds is a very interesting director. He does the Carpenter approach of using like the same actors for like all of his movies, and a lot of it's a lot of low budget. However, from what I can see, he only uses practical effects. Like
That's
I can't
fucking
remember
dumb.
any CGI in any of his stuff, and his stuff gets really out there and grandiose in a couple of cases. Like there's one that had Cthulhu in it, and it was all practical, and it's like a guy in a suit or something, but they actually do all like the old school effect. Like he is dedicated to doing nothing but practical effects. And while I might not like all of his movies, I have to admire his commitment to just keeping that art alive. And there are a couple of movies I really like that he did, like Winter Skin, which is a very interesting movie. It involves a guy with no skin, so at one point, something like that. And again, all practical, really cool.
Oof.
Other than that, there are actually a couple of other people I'd like to do shout outs to real quick, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
All right, so on the music side of things, there's Pitch Black Manor. I don't know if you heard of them, with Joshua Bentley, Lyle Erickson, and Chad Pfeiffer. They do a bunch of horror-inspired music. Like I found this quote from James Sweetlove of Cave Dweller Music, and it says, "Pitch Black Manor are Halloween incarnate. From their aesthetic to their lyrical themes and the spooky gothic energy in their music, all that they make one think of is jack-o'-lanterns, goblins, ghosts, and ghouls pouring out rundown houses on a hill surrounded by an overgrown yard and a simple fog." And you know what? Pretty much. They do a lot of cool stuff. They just had a couple of new songs come out. Have not had a chance to check them out yet, but their other album, Night Creeps, was really good.
Nice.
And to lead off to that, oh yeah, no, they're really cool. I remember, I owe Joshua Bentley and Pitch Black Manor a lot because they were, I think Ash Hamilton was the first time I got into like doing indie promotion, but they're the ones that solidified it. They reached out to me and they're like, "Hey, we would love to write an article." And that was like my first big article on indie horror. It was their new album at the time, and that was, like that started the journey.
Right.
There's also Profondo del Tenebrae, which is like Tenebrae, the Argento stuff, and their music is like Joshua Pfeiffer, I believe that's how you pronounce it. He does like a bunch of music that's very much inspired by Goblin and Carpenter and Frizzy and Morricone and stuff like that. Really cool, moody, atmospheric music. You can check out his stuff on Bandcamp.
Definitely.
And Gerardo Preciado, I'm very sorry if I mispronounced that, Gerardo, but he has this thing he does called Ancient Order of the Droids. I don't know if you heard about that.
No, not yet.
He does whole soundtracks to movies that don't exist. Like the whole story is all the vibes and the titles of the soundtrack, and it's like like these. It's like you're able to visualize the movie as you listen to it, and it's really cool. And he actually made his first movie not too long ago. He made Narco Shark, which is available on Tubi, I believe. And Narco Shark 2 is coming out soon too, I believe. So he's moving on up to actual films from imaginary films. So I'm proud of him. Good job, Dan.
Hey, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, you really do. Like, and that goes for like me too. Like, there's a lot of stuff that it's the hardest step is the first step, and then each step afterwards comes a lot easier. because there's a lot of stress and uncertainty of that first step. Like, what if it doesn't go well? What if it doesn't work? What if I fuck up? And like, hey, that's like part of the process, right? You fuck up, learn for what you did, and you get better at it. That's essentially how my writing worked, where I was like, man, I look at some of my writing from 3 years ago and I'm like, well, some of it's pretty good, but I'm like, oh man, I definitely grew as a writer. And it's just keep doing what you love, keep writing, keep making films, keep doing whatever that is your passion. And over time, you just get better at it. So again, practice makes perfect, I guess.
As always, out there in the Morgrat universe, humble as fuck. And that's the thing that unifies us all here in the underground, is that passion for what drives you to be creative. And we thank you so much, Giallo, for joining us tonight, and giving us a look into why it is you do what you do and what inspires you to write, and being that literary voice for indie horror and everything that is horror underground. We really appreciate you joining us tonight. It has been just a blast. I could talk to you for like 6 fucking hours.
Yeah, I've been having a blast too, man. Yeah, no, this is a lot of fun, dude. I really appreciate you having me. Yeah, no. And for all you people that want to check out my stuff, I have a new series going on called Direction Dissection. The first one just came out, where I talked to director Adam Simon about Brain Dead. And this one's really important to me because I'm getting a lot of information saved that wasn't known before. There's a lot of information there that hasn't been brought up to light before. And I'm trying to do that with as many cult directors and stuff as possible. So hopefully that series keeps growing for a bit. Also, check out History of Carnosaur, the book by Joey Palinkas, because I wrote for that.
Definitely. We want to patch that. And thank you for doing what you do.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, you're another very vital piece of the puzzle that helps continuing this indie horror community. And we can't wait to see what you write about next. Who knows? Maybe even the big bad devil daddy himself.
I mean, that's the plan, isn't it? And before you go, I want to give a quick, like, rapid fire shout outs. Down Diego, who does paleo media on YouTube. Great. Mr. Craven, the best Let's Player I personally seen. Nightmind, if you like indie internet, if you think I do a lot for indie horror, Nightmind, the YouTuber, does a lot for indie internet horror promotion. Check out his stuff. Rhiannon Kago, I believe how you pronounce her name. She is a fantastic artist who does like a bunch of Resident Evil art. Check it out. And then, of course, I'll end this off with Inky Wells, formerly Razor D. Rockefeller, but she goes by Inky Wells now. She is a master of many art. She does music with the Mary Lou's, art, modeling, movies. Check her out too. So
nice. Just a wealth of talent that you are hipping us all to.
Hey, listen, all these people are worth checking out. They are all passionate to their craft. They're all passionate to horror, or at least horror like related things. And again, I appreciate you having me on here, man. You don't know how much it means to me.
Oh, yeah. Because, you know, like I said, that's what unites us in the underground. And when, you know, I got to talk to you on the set of Killer Cox, I just knew, you know, that the fact that you have basically the same mindset as I did when I started this show 3 years ago. Well, shit, almost 4 years now.
Hell yeah, man.
That we're helping to make the community aware of a lot of these different artists and creators. You know, and we really, really appreciate you so much.
And I appreciate all of you. Like, you guys make it all worth it. Like, seeing you guys actually, you know, get some press out there, people commenting on your stuff, people seeing your guys' stuff. Like, that's all it's all about. That's what it's always all about. It's just getting your guys' stuff out there as much as possible. And again, I said, if I can just get one person to look at those articles and get like just that much more of an audience, then I can sleep soundly that night.
Same. Absolutely. It's that one film. Give it a shot. That one article. Hey, check it out. And Dreadful is very, very well known for bringing awareness to a lot of these great films that are up and coming. So if you want to follow, go ahead.
As I said, they have been very supportive the entire time, and I can't thank them enough for this.
Definitely, and we can't thank you enough for what you do. Thank you all so much out there in the Morgue Rot universe for joining us tonight, having this awesome talent with us.
Appreciate it.
Also helping to carry the torch for indie horror on one of the best, online platforms for horror. And, most important thing is, tomorrow is Friday. That's right. We made it to the end of the week. You might be, putting on a good horror film tonight. And, if you're not sure what to watch, check out Dread Central. Check out some of the great articles that Giallo has done. And always stay heavy.
Later, everybody.
Thank you for joining us on Reapers Underground. Stay tuned for more from Morgue Rot Entertainment in association with Black Flame Entertainment.